Well, that would fucking do it. Okay. There we go. Is this thing on? Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Is this thing on? Yell at me if you can hear me. Are we connected? Can you hear me? Are we good? Can you hear me? Hello, 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 hello? I'm gonna say you can hear me. We're gonna get started real quick here. And I guess without further ado, I now present to you the RPGSTUCK panel for SAHCON 2024. Thank you. 3 heroes are gathered in the furthest reaches of the abyss. The Knight of Void, the Mage of Hope, the Heir of Rage. 3 godlike figures gathered together on a small platform, hopelessly hurtling through the furthest ring, and they have beckoned you to join them. Together, they want to tell you something. They want to talk to you about a tabletop.
Have you ever had a fan kid or fan troll? Have you ever wondered what kind of adventures they get up to? Maybe you've written a story or two. Do you want to play in one of these adventures all the way through? And would you happen to have around 1.5 years of available time? RPGSTUCK 2.5e is a tabletop role-playing game in which you, your SM, and a number of your friends, which is hopefully divisible by 2, simulate SPERB to its fullest. Lands, god-tiering, petty teenage drama, and most importantly of all, insurmountable crushing tragedy. But some of you in the audience, of which I hope there is one might I add, could possibly be asking, but dear gracious host with bowls full of Scotty dogs and or drapery that may or may not be a specific shade of emerald green, what is a tabletop? And to that I answer, it's whatever the hell you want it to be. And that's the magic of it. Dungeons & Dragons comes to note, I'm sure others such as Pathfinder 2e or Cyberpunk Red might be a little lesser known, yes, and if you're asking me, Dungeons & Dragons fall a little short between these two, but that doesn't stop them from being great. TTRPGs, which is the term we'll be using from now on, are played using a set of dice whose catalog goes beyond the mere d6 or d20. Vriska's Fluorite Octet may come to mind here as a set of d8s. Specifically, a set of dice contains a d4, a d6, a d8, d10, and d12, then lastly and most important, a d20. Keep these things in mind for the future, dear viewers, they will be crucial to your survival in these wilds. Now, with all of that out of the way, I'd like you to picture something. Your name is Name Unknown, and today is your 13th birthday. Today is a very special day because today is your
Within RPGSTUCK, you obviously must make a character, whether it be a troll, a human, or really whatever you want as long as you can homebrew it. For our panel, we have created 3 character sheets, each representing a type of character within the system. Each of these characters you will recognize as part of Homestuck. The 3 types of characters within the system are Martial, Minor Scion, and Major Scion. Each represent one's ability to use Strife Specify and Psionics. For these roles, we have chosen Equius, Tavros, and Solix, respectively. Now this may sound like word slop to you, but worry not. In time, we'll have you speaking the lingo fluently. For a quick, easy translation guide, I'll list it all here.
STR, which stands for Strength, denotes one's physical strength or otherwise bodily fortitude when the next stat doesn't cover it. It governs the athletic skill and is also the most widely used stat for merely Strife Specify. CON in this context doesn't stand for convention, but rather constitution. It is your overall bodily fortitude. This determines your resistance to hardships in the form of the endurance skill as well as affecting your HP at the very beginning and subsequent level ups. FTR and CON both determine your fortitude, which is your overall resistance to poisons, diseases, and other such effects. DEX, or dexterity, is, among other things, your speed. It affects your initiative reaction, your affinity with ranged weapons and finesse weapons, as well as things such as your overall deftness with sleight of hand and acrobatics. INT stands for intelligence. It is a measure of your mental prowess and is a means by which to sum up your mental faculties, breadth of knowledge, and raw brain power. It affects brainy skills like engineering, investigation, and occult. It is also used in some weapons. Dex and Int both determine your reflex, which is your ability to dodge or wriggle out of nasty situations. WIS stands for wisdom. It is a measure of your general awareness and intuition and governs the greatest number of skills in the system, which range from animal handling to insight and even sanity. It also affects perception, which can be important. CHA stands for Charisma. It is a measure of your social ability and governs all of your social skills, including deception, intimidation, performance, and persuasion. Depending on your SM, you may or may not have plenty of social interaction in your campaign, and as such, CHA isn't something you should just ignore. Wisdom and Charisma both determine your will, which is your ability to resist mental attacks or stressful situations. Scions naturally have lowered psionic resistance, so be sure to focus at least a little on raising your will resistance if you can. Now that that's out of the way, let's get on to the characters themselves, starting with RPGSTUCK.
RPGSTUCK, our first example, is a great example of a martial character. Martial characters focus on maximizing the use of their Strife Specify, eschewing the use of any psionics as a trade-off. They have all the special attacks of their chosen Specify, and additionally gain an increase to their hit die size, boosting their total HP. We assign stat points according to how Equius is in the webcomic, emphasizing his incredible strength. His racial bonus as an Indigo Blood doesn't hurt either, granting an extra 3 points of it. As for his Strife Specify, he's given Fistkind and the special Specibus Abstrata, Tormentor's Edge. Fistkind just makes sense, as that's the one he uses in Homestuck anyways. It should be noted that Fistkind is a Specibus that you can and should alchemize upgrades for, like Hand Wraps or Metal Knuckles. Tormentor's Edge is a special kind of Specibus, an Abstrata, which basically gives Equius more things to do with his attacks regarding Fistkind. We don't see Equius fight very much, but what we do see is that he hits hard and he hits fast. As such, he is given the Striker Pillar, which suits a down and dirty up-close fighter. He's additionally given the initial milestone, Heavy Weapon, which allows him to hit exceptionally hard once per turn. As for his skills, he is given proficiency in Athletics, Engineering, and Intimidation. As Equius is an Indigo Blood, and additionally not a Scion of any sort, he has Psionic Resistance. This means that mind-affecting Psionic attacks, most notably Mind Control, become far more difficult to land on him. If you want the exact way this works, this means the opponent using mind-affecting Psionic needs to roll 2 dice and take the lower result of the 2. Speaking of resistances, Equius has proficiency in Fortitude Resistance, pumping it even higher. This does leave his other 2 resistances lacking though, at an 18, 11, 10 spread.
On the other side of the extreme, we have Stalek's captor playing the role of the Major Scion. Major Scions, unlike Marshals, are capable of incredible shows of force and power which do not require weapons. In Stalek's case, as a Major Scion, he has access to 2 psionic powers, wow, we've been saying that word a lot, of which he has Telekinesis and Eye-Beams. To dive into some more specifics, Major Scions get all the sub-powers from one of their chosen powers and 1 sub-power from the other. In the case of Dear Captor, his primary ability is Telekinesis, sporting every possible sub-power from it, whereas only Eye-Beams' primary sub-power was chosen. The big things aside, Stalek's stats were allocated a little heavier towards the mind end of things. With his casting status Int, you'd need it to be the highest of your array, of course, with Wiz sitting at 12 alongside it. His physical combat capabilities aren't exactly going to be shining the brightest, but that's no matter, next to his might in a duel of the minds. Or more accurately, a completely lopsided obliteration of the enemy's minds. Spurb's underlings aren't the smartest, I'm afraid. In any case, RPGSTUCK characters still need their arsenal, as they're hardly complete without it. Now, personally, I had to make some stretches here, since we ever only see Stalek's fight with his powers, obviously. I allotted him Glasskind, the ever-mysterious focus weapons. Seriously, no one can give me a concrete answer on what it is. And, well, since Stalek's has literally nothing else at his disposal, to my knowledge, Fistkind. He's probably not going to be using that very often. Well, you have your 2 Specify, your 2 Psionics, but something's still missing, isn't it? Yes, of course, the skills. As a specialist using the Skill Sage milestone, Stalek has 5 skills that he can be proficient in as opposed to the usual 3. So I have allotted them to Engineering, Investigation, Perception, Sanity, and Concentration. And if I'm not wrong, that should be everything. Which means we can move on to our last example, the Minor Scion, also known as Tavros Nitram. On to you, Runechaser.
Maybe you want a bit of both. You can't have everything be perfect, but you can certainly give yourself options. A Minor Scion is a character that has access to psionics while not entirely giving up the use of Strife Specify. Minor Scions get access to 1 power and 1 sub-power from it, as well as 1 special attack from one of their 2 Strife Specify. Unlike Major Scions, they can use special attacks, but they don't get easy access to major slots, leaving them with only minor slots for their psionic powers. Tavros Nitram is a good example of a Minor Scion, as he uses both weapons and psionics. He is given Beast Control as a power, and Beastmaster as the chosen sub-power, as he uses Communion psionics in the webcomic, and a special attack from Spearkind, Charge. Tavros' stats are allocated in a rather balanced manner according to his behavior in the webcomic. He's got rock-bottom charisma, focusing on strength and int for the purpose of empowering his weapon attacks and his psionic abilities respectively. Wait, didn't Tavros use a lance in the webcomic? Yes, he did. So what's he doing with Spearkind? In RPGSTUCK, Strife Specify can be reflavored or renamed to fit a certain aesthetic better. You can make up a whole Strife Specibus, sure, but you need to get your SM to approve it, and as such it's much easier and actually recommended to just reflavor an existing Specibus. Spearkind can be reflavored as Lancekind without much of an issue, and so Tavros will essentially be using Spearkind, but will be calling it Lancekind instead. Tavros is a little bit of a geek in the webcomic, and as such he is under the Specialist pillar, and using the Skill Sage milestone, he can be proficient in 2 additional skills from the beginning. The skills he was made proficient in are Investigation, Animal Handling, Insight, Perception, and Performance. These skills tend to make him better at completing puzzles. As a minor scion, Tavros has psionic vulnerability, causing him to be at disadvantage against psionics targeting his will resistance, which means the aggressor rolls 2 dice and takes the higher result, making it easier to affect Tavros with something like mind control. To help make up for this, he is proficient in will resistance. With a 12, 13, 12 resistance spread, he's pretty decent, but not particularly stellar in anything. Hold on, what's an SM? A Skyan Maestro, Sringelmach, or, most appropriately, a Session Master, is essentially the boss of all that goes on within a session of RPGSTUCK. They're comparable to a DM or Dungeon Master, if you're familiar with other TTRPGs. They govern all that happens within the session, piloting all the NPCs, plotting all the maps, the tragedies too, and making sure everything flows smoothly. As an SM, you're gonna need plenty of tools. How many tabs are you gonna have open in that browser of yours? Depends on how many players you've got, but there's a few staples that are important to have open at all times. You're gonna need all your players' character sheets open, the session sheet, and the SM sheet too, optionally, the 2.5e directory, the player's handbook, the monster manual, and whatever pages from it you need for the session, and potentially a YouTube tab to fetch music for a music bot. The Strife Specibus list, Psionics document, and the Paths and Pillars document are also good to have open. It's a lot to keep track of, but it's certainly a rewarding experience. So, how do you start? You're gonna need a group to play with first. It also doesn't hurt to check out the provided Dungeon Master's Guide if you're totally new to TTRPGs. A group of friends into Homestuck usually works, but if you don't have enough folks interested in playing a TTRPG about Homestuck, there's always the RPGSTUCK Discord or Reddit page. 2 to 3 people is best if you're just starting out. I really do not recommend running a traditional 4-player game of Spurb as your first ever DM experience. That being said, you do have a couple of options open to you in terms of what kind of a game you want to run. You could run the classic Spurb, yes, but when we did that, it took a whole year of constant attendance. 3 to 5 days a week, 3 to 4 hours each session just to complete that. Spurb is not something to be taken lightly. Instead, you could start out with a simple one-shot, a short campaign meant to be done in just 1 or 2 sessions, or a campaign that might be a bit longer but isn't quite on the level of Spurb. Make sure to pace yourself and don't set unreasonable expectations of yourself. Once you have your players assembled, you can start crafting the adventure you want to run. Alternatively, you can create a campaign that you invite people to via posts online. And if you go onto the RPGSTUCK Discord or Reddit page, you'll see plenty of examples of such campaigns. Once you've got the campaign going, you might be tempted to immediately start giving people class specs. Hold up a moment before you do that. There are many class specs that can change the course of an entire campaign, and you shouldn't go around giving out the Knight of Hope class spec unless you and your players understand that the resulting session will be exceptionally difficult. Instead, use the first few sessions of a longer campaign to just get an idea of what your player characters are like, what they strive for, what they want to become, what they're good at, and what they might lack. Additionally, don't reveal class specs to the players until it's properly time to do so. God tiering is one time to do it, but important conversations with NPCs like Prospition or Dursite Royalty, or perhaps a Denizen, is another good time to do it. It's meant to be a big reveal. Most importantly, make sure you're having fun as an SM, and make sure your players are having fun as well. It's a game, after all, and if folks aren't having fun, well, what's the point? Do also make sure to pace yourself. Do not stress yourself out. Take breaks if you must. It's very important to do so. Later on, we'll talk about scheduling sessions, so if you're a prospective SM, be sure to keep those words in mind. One of the main pillars of actually playing RPGSTUCK is the roleplay, be it text-based, over Discord, over VC, or through a PesterChum client. Yes, those do exist. Although there is really no truly correct way to roleplay, one should at least acknowledge the type of character you are playing. If you are playing as a human character, try to stay in line with that. And if you are playing a troll character, try to keep in mind troll vocabulary or typing quirks. Throughout sessions, at least in our case, we employed usage of the PesterChum IRC for roleplay between characters, along with standard Discord channels for non-IRC communication. It was assumed our characters had either already obtained the gift of gab or simply had no true need for it. This is a TTRPG, and like most of them, it's gonna have plenty of situations that can't be resolved with just words. Boy Egbert and his crew often had to duke it out with all sorts of underlings, carapacians, and many other sorts of adversaries. Combat is just one facet of RPGSTUCK that is rarely neglected, although some campaigns might exclude it, and it definitely behooves players to make sure they know how to fight effectively. When combat starts, initiative is rolled. You roll a d20 and add your initiative modifier to it, which is usually your dex modifier. Whoever gets the highest result goes first, whether that be player or adversary, and the rest of the participants are ordered in a descending list according to their initiative roll. There are various means by which to improve your initiative rolls, but the simplest way is to simply increase your dexterity. During combat, with some exceptions, you have 5 types of actions you can take during your turn. Chief among them is your major action, which is used to attack, use psionics, or otherwise take powerful actions. You also get a minor action, which is used for some supporting actions or continuing a combo attack. Free actions can be done at will, and you can do any number of them at any time. Your reaction action is something that refreshes whenever it becomes your turn again, and can be used for various reactions. These don't come up often, but some pillars and paths do make use of them, as well as certain strife specify, like shields. You also, by default, some situations accepted, have 30 feet of distance you can move within your turn, which in a grid composed of 5-foot squares amounts to 6 squares. It's always a good idea to keep the player's handbook open to reference the many things you could do with your major and minor actions, as if they're not used, they're wasted until your next turn. Combat most always ends with the defeat of one or both sides of the conflict, whether that means slaying your enemies outright, convincing them to abandon the conflict through persuasion or intimidation, or simply KOing them instead. One upside of combat is that you get loot and experience. Grist is present in RPGSTUCK, and you'll get some based on how strong your opponents were. Depending on the type of campaign your SM is running, you might get experience as well, unless your SM is running a milestone-style advancement campaign where you gain whole levels all at once, at certain intervals or events. Over the course of your adventures, you're likely going to come across many sorts of puzzles. Maybe it'll be as simple as finding a hidden lever or picking the right door. Other times it might be a logic puzzle, or perhaps something more complex. Those ancient tombs full of treasures are often also filled with traps and puzzles. Additionally, you may also have to engage in conversation with NPCs you find. The most common example of this is the consorts in your land, although carapacians and even denizens also come to mind. It's important to keep a cool head on your shoulders when dealing with big-wig NPCs, as early on, talking your way out of a bad situation may just be much easier than fighting your way out.
Generally, a group should have at least one session every week. A little less is fine, and more is always better. At some points throughout RuneStuck, we ran a session every day for a short while, although this is not recommended as it leaves very little time to plan for the next session. As RPGSTUCK is asynchronous in nature, not every player needs to be present for every session. Therefore, the only person who really needs to be there every session is the SM. This results in scheduling being generally very loose and easier than with synchronous systems. Do keep in mind that sessions can last as long as 5+ hours, and one should make sure that the people involved will be available for the full time of the session before embarking upon one. It would be possible for someone to miss important story points or plot points if one would have to leave mid-session. Now, since we have time, to close off this video, we will now present an interview with our very dear friend and SM Runechaser, who SM'd a campaign called RuneStuck, which lasted a little over a year in length. Enjoy.
We're here live with Runechaser at the location of HPLC, and we are going to ask Runechaser, esteemed SM of the campaign RuneStuck, a few questions about our experience while playing the game alongside him. So, Runechaser, since I've got you held captive, duct taped down in that chair, could you tell me about how you felt starting your own campaign?
Honestly, I was pretty apprehensive about it. Originally, someone else was supposed to do it, but honestly, I just decided since it was taking so long for things to kick up, I decided to step in and do it myself. It was my first ever campaign I ran, and honestly, I don't regret it one bit. It did take a while, but you know what? It was fun.
How would you describe RuneStuck in a couple words, like one sentence?
Spurb, but better, probably. It's mostly just a journey of, like, self-discovery, of letting go, and I guess kind of growing up, but there's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of suffering, but there's a lot of growth, too.
Tell us about the characters in RuneStuck, when it began. Give each character a few words.
King Umbral was he was a mishmash of different characteristics, like a wizard, ninja, kinda like Dave, but also kind of like Rose. A bunch of different things all together, I guess. And as for Omnian was kind of like Gamzee, I guess.
Hello? Are we back? Are we back? Are we motherfucking back? Are we motherfucking back? I'm a little bit shoddy right now. My Wi-Fi is fucked. Okay. 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 That dented our views, but we are back, and I am gonna start back up on the interview. And that'll be that. 3 heroes are gathered in the further
campaign.
Honestly, I was pretty apprehensive about it. Originally, someone else was supposed to do it, but honestly, I just decided since it was taking so long for things to kick up, I decided to step in and do it myself. It was my first ever campaign I ran, and honestly, I don't regret it one bit. It did take a while, but you know what? It was fun.
How would you describe RuneStuck in a couple words, like one sentence?
Spurb, but better, probably. It's mostly just a journey of, like, self-discovery, of letting go, and I guess kind of growing up, but there's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of suffering, but there's a lot of growth, too.
Tell us about the characters in RuneStuck, when it began. Give each character a few words.
King Umbral was he was a mishmash of different characteristics, like a wizard, ninja, kinda like Dave, but also kind of like Rose. A bunch of different things all together, I guess. And as for Omnian was kind of like Gamzee, I guess. Thinking back on it, Gamzee, but a bit more violent, maybe. Chill sometimes, but a little violent. And as for Jack, he's just a book nerd. Honestly, he's just a book nerd.
Tell us about the characters at the end of the campaign. Like, how do they compare to their pre-game counterparts?
Oh, they changed so much. King Umbral ended up being probably one of the saddest characters I've seen like, ever. If he wasn't, like, getting stuff done, he was very introspective and very, very sad about the whole situation, which, to be fair, any normal person would probably be pretty discouraged by all the nasty stuff that's going on. Onion, she changed a bit. She ended up growing stronger, kicked the super slime addiction, for the most part, with a good bit of intervention, obviously. And Jack Jackson, he became a real boy. So there's that.
What would you say that your 3 favorite moments from RuneStuck have been over the course of the campaign?
Probably my favorite was when Gringlefuck, our resident Genesis frog, who's instead a grist scarab. If you don't know what a grist scarab is, it's basically a bug that looks like a bit of grist. He ascended upon the altar of creation and created the new universe, known as HPLC. My second favorite moment has got to be when I unveiled the players' lands, their inverted lands specifically. That was a moment that I looked forward to doing for at least a few weeks prior, actually. I was meticulously planning all those, and honestly, I liked them. It was a good final adventure before they moved on to the Proving Grounds. And as for the third one, it was quite the emotional scene, and the first time I ever cried while SMing this. It was when Omnian brutally slaughtered her Lucis. After rolling a natural crit in what should have been a play fight, she used brimstone and blasted her poor Lucis across the room, leaving lime blood everywhere. All over this sofa, all over the carpet, everywhere. It was sad, and it did not help that I put on some sad music on top of it.
If I may make an addendum, that was in my apartment?
Yeah.
You got blood all over my apartment.
What was it like to SM your first game of RuneStuck? Especially as a first-time SM, your first time ever DMing a tabletop.
Honestly, it was pretty daunting at first, having to deal with basically 2 separate areas where players were working and adventuring in. It was pretty difficult. I also had to manage like what people could see of each other. There's a lot of plotting going on. I'm gonna be real with you. There's a lot of plotting going on between the players, and that made things pretty interesting. A lot of stuff got easier as I got more and more experience. And honestly, it was a really fun experience once all the dust settled and I got into the flow of things. I highly recommend at least SMing a one-shot campaign, like a really short, just one little adventure campaign if you're interested. You will not regret it. It is very fulfilling.
What's your favorite part of SMing, and how do you generally go about it?
I love to create adventures for my players. When I was SMing, I was working a night shift job, and most of my time was spent either staring into the distance as I do my work, or thinking, and a lot of that thinking was directed towards the campaign. And so a lot of it was, how would this kind of adventure go? How would this character react to that? What can I account for? This and that. It's a lot of like deliberating and thinking, but honestly, it's nice. I like to create stories, and so creating the story is my favorite part of SMing, as well as, you know, actually playing it out and seeing it unfold, whether or not it went to my expectations or not. That's part of the fun too.
What would you like to say to new and upcoming SMs?
The first thing you should ask your players, as if you're doing like a more personalized campaign like we did, you want to ask your players what they want. Like, what do they want out of an adventure? You want to take a look at their characters, you know, take a look at their bio tabs on their sheets, figure out what kind of character they are, and then you want to build that adventure around them so as to create basically the best tailored experience that you can. Campaigns absolutely should not be rushed. Absolutely not.
What are your favorite mechanics in RPGSTUCK 2.5e?
That honestly has got to be pillars and paths. If any of you have ever heard of like a class system like what D&D has with like clerics, fighters, wizards, rogues, it's something like that. But instead of like locking your character to like one class and following that path, you've got pillars. So you've got Sentinel, Striker, Specialist, you've also got Sniper, right? I almost forgot because no one in our group actually took Sniper.
Yeah, not one of us brought a gun.
Not one of us brought a gun. Sentinel is all about being a big tanky dude. You've got a lot of health, you got a lot of armor, you got a lot of armor class. You're tough to even hit in the first place. Striker's all about getting up in personal in enemies' faces and just hitting them really hard and really often too. Snipers, they're all about the opposite. Staying far away, hitting real hard from there. It's pretty good. Specialists are all about using skills like investigation, like animal handling, like acrobatics. They're all about using those skills during non-combat situations really well, and in some cases can even use them in combat situations instead. A specialist using athletics could grapple really, really well. And those are the pillars. Paths are all about, like, if you've ever played D&D, they're like your feats. They're your special abilities that you can do, or like passive abilities that just affect you just casually. Like, for example, Inner Clarity is a path, and within it is a step called Slotted Up. It gives you it gives you some extra psionic slots that you can use to cast more psionic abilities. Or something like Magic is Real from Path of the Thaumaturge. It enables a otherwise psionicless character. For example, if you are a martial character, you can now have psionics. And you use an alternate resource for that, which is called Dreams. It's pretty nice. Overall, I'm very fond of the Pillars and Paths feature of RPGSTUCK 2.5e.
What would you like to say to new players? Not the SMs, but the people who are actually participating in the campaigns.
It's okay to make a self-insert character. That's fine. When you're just starting out, that might just be your first character ever. But if you want to, like, really broaden your horizons, really get into the, like, nitty-gritty of it all, and, like, really get into role-playing, make a character that you normally wouldn't be. Like, if you like to call yourself a bookworm, maybe make a mechanic kind of character, or you make a fightery kind of character. All sorts of different things that you can do. Don't restrict yourself. And if your SM is nice, they can let you respec or respecialize at some point. And basically, like, if you've been not going down a right path, maybe you can rebuild your character. It's one thing you can do. But what I liked from my players is that they took, like, really spread out characters, and they made them really interesting. Even like a quote unquote mechanically bad character can still be really interesting. So don't focus too much on min-maxing, is what I'm trying to say. Don't focus on min-maxing. Try to make a character that you will enjoy playing.
Alright, thank you for your time, Runechaser. That is all the questions that we have today. I hope you enjoyed our questions. I hope you enjoyed being here with us, and I guess coming down here and talking with us again.
Seriously though, thank you for your time. It's nice to see you again. You know how it is.
Yeah.
Alright. We got desktop audio. We got application audio. Hold on. All my shit's fucked. All my shit's fucked.
Concerning. Don't worry. You got it.
Yeah, but you guys aren't showing up. Hold on, let me just... There we go. Okay, I fixed it. I fixed it. Hey guys.
Yes! Hello!
Welcome to the RPGSTUCK 2.5e panel Q&A. If there's any questions you guys had about the panel that somehow weren't answered, you can ask them here, and we will answer them to the best of our abilities. Anyways, can my other co-hosts here please speak up, say hello, get your names out there? If you want to say a few things about yourself, you can. I guess I'll go last if we do that. So, who would like to...
I'm gonna start because I am I snuck in at the last minute basically. Hi everybody, I am so glad to be here and be at SAHCON again. This was actually not planned by RPGSTUCK, the mod team or whatever, but this was planned entirely by Willow, King, and Runechaser, so I really want to give a big shout out to all of them. So, my name is Jerry, as far as you know, and I am an RPGSTUCK moderator. I have been playing RPGSTUCK for 9 years, since I was 13. I was a middle schooler. I am now 22, and I have a job. That's crazy. So... I'm here to answer your questions with the help of Willow, King, and Runechaser, so I'll let them introduce themselves.
I am King. I played King Umbral in RuneStuck, as I'm sure you've heard about, at length, and I really was afraid of coming here. I was very afraid. These guys are all my friends. They're all chill as fuck. I love you all. Thank you all for coming.
Alright, I guess I will go. I am Willow. I organized this whole shebang. I played Omni and Binary, the only troll character in RuneStuck. And... I'm the one streaming, I guess. I'm the one who is currently in a thunderstorm, and... my Wi-Fi could go out at any minute. On to you, Runechaser.
Hello, I am Runechaser. I'm the one who SM'd the whole RuneStuck campaign that you just heard about in the interview. That was my first time ever DMing, and it was fun. On to the questions, perhaps?
We've already got plenty.
Yeah, first question that I want to answer really quick is, how do I get into a campaign I have 0 friends interested in Stuck? RPGSTUCK actually has a server, which you can find in the description, the RPGSTUCK official Discord. However, these guys run a server called the Desperados, and they're interested in one of our other editions of RPGSTUCK called 2.5e. 2.5e retains the number crunchy feel of our old 2e edition, and we kind of maintain it as an offshoot of 2e, even though we now have a newer edition, quote-unquote newer, called 3e, 3rd edition. So it really depends on what you're into. The RPGSTUCK official Discord is a lot bigger than the Sperbiverse, but the Sperbiverse has an active community, and they're willing to help you get into a game if there's enough interest. So there are always people online willing to play.
I guess I will take a swing at one of these questions. I saw one, how complicated is teaching and learning RPGSTUCK as a first RPG? So... I've taught a number of people who have never played tabletops before RPGSTUCK as a system, and it tends to be very user-friendly and not quite thought-intensive, unless you're getting really late into a campaign. So by that point they would already have enough knowledge to deal with the more complex parts. And so I feel like, as a first-time RPG, RPGSTUCK is actually a first-time tabletop RPG. RPGSTUCK is a really good choice, just as a starter, really.
As an extension of that, I see a couple questions about D&D 5e. If you have D&D 5e experience, or even if you don't have D&D 5e experience, it's gonna be a relatively smooth, easy experience for you to run. So you don't need to have prior experience in any of the concepts presented in RPGs.
All right, so let me look through here. I saw a couple questions I was interested in. Quote from Bite Crush or Bit Crush: was thinking of getting a bunch of friends together for a session. Is there any advice on getting around work, school, or other discrepancies? I might not be the guy to answer this, but hey, I'll take my best crack at it. Honestly, I've played a lot of tabletops. The best thing you can do is just talk with your table. Go like, hey, I might be busy this week, or like, hey, I am going to be busy tonight or today or what have you. Is there like anything we can do to get around this? That's like the best thing you could ask. It really is the best thing you could ask, just to say like, I might not be available today, and I'm sure everyone would understand. It's not as bad as someone think it is, and yes, scheduling is often a killer of most campaigns, but it's still relatively easy to get around if everyone knows what they're doing.
I saw a question about my campaign in here. It's about the inverted lands. You heard about the concept a while ago. Well, the deal with the inverted lands was it was basically it was like a one last stretch for the players to get through before they got onto the proving grounds, which is basically our battlefield equivalent. The deal with the inverted lands was the lands were literally flipped inside out, thusly called inverted lands. And so, take King's Land, for example, land of bricks and gold. Underneath it, he would find in chasms were these great, deep voids of nothing, of nothingness. And so once he defeated his denizen, who was holding his land in place, basically, it flipped inside out, kind of reverting to how it once used to be, becoming the land of paths and void, the inverse land. The land of skulls and metal, Omnian's land. It was a very desolate land already, and then when it was inverted, it became... Oh, goodness, it's been a hot minute. But it basically became, if any of you are familiar with the violence layer from Ultrakill, it was much like that, complete with earth movers. It was basically... Inverted lands are just another form of the land, basically meant as like a final stretch.
Let's see if there's any other questions here I can take a crack at. I got a question here from Fried Mambo. Do you think it's preferable for players to know a lot about Homestuck / what Spurb entails before starting, or could they go in blind okay? So, in the past, I've experimented with getting non-Homestucks into RPGSTUCK Spurb-based sessions, and usually if you explain the mechanics very slowly, they'll tend to understand them a lot easier than how fast it is explained in Homestuck. And it is definitely better to have Homestuck knowledge before getting into RPGSTUCK, but if you just want to introduce somebody into RPGSTUCK, and maybe that's how you get them into Homestuck, I think that's perfectly fine, as long as you try not to delve too much into spoilery territory, like god tiering, or creating a new universe, or really the cherubs or the denizens or any of that. But as long as you keep it to non-canon things, then I think it should be perfectly fine.
To add on to that, when I was doing SM work for RuneStuck, what I initially did was I just did a whole reread of Homestuck just to prime myself for it. I don't recommend doing a whole reread. Just like skim through it, really, because when RuneStuck was basically based on Spurb. And so, just if you're an SM and you really do want to run something like Spurb, a quick reread of Homestuck might be in order, just to like refresh yourself on some of the concepts, just to help you build the story better.
I don't want to alarm any of you, but we've got 10 minutes.
I'm aware.
Hussy Hints has made a special guest appearance. So Hussy Hints says, have you ever read Homestuck? And the truth is, no. I've never read Homestuck. I have no idea what the hell that is. It's like some kind of webcomic or something. I don't know. And they did also say that Boy Skylard is the Windacious one. Watch O2 for his great breeze. And that is very good advice.
I do believe that none of us actually know what a Homestuck is, nor have we ever read a Homestuck.
SAHCON? What's that? Are you gonna tell me a dirty joke?
It honestly, all of that sounds really completely boring to me, and I don't think I would ever check anything like that out.
Never heard of it.
Anyway, somebody asked...
I am... Oop. Sorry, you can answer the next question.
So, somebody asked, Hussy Hints, is that you? No.
No, I'm not Hussy Hints. I'm RPGSTUCK. I am RPGSTUCK community in chat. I speak with a voice of 1,700 people simultaneously at once. That's me. SAHCON D's. Nah. Yeah. So since we're close to the end, again, I want to say, thank you so much to Willow, King, and Runechaser for hosting this panel, because we've hosted SAHCON panels in the past, like us as in like the RPGSTUCK mod team, which is me and 6 other people, and it is a very stressful experience, not because of SAHCON in particular, but just because it's just it's just a stressful experience in general. Running a panel. I have had stream issues twice, and this time, we had stream issues, except this time it's not my fault, so I'm fine with it. But these stream issues were much less severe than the stream issues we've had in the past. In the past, we had, we actually ran an interactive game for the chat. We ran interactive, like, Twitch plays RPGSTUCK or YouTube plays RPGSTUCK, and it was kind of hectic. It was really crazy, I'm not gonna lie. But it's much nicer to have this chill panel that's hosted by members of the community, because in my mind, that's what RPGSTUCK is about, like taking the initiative to make that game for yourself and really just like being a self-starter and just, getting together, playing a tabletop game. It's why we're licensed under that CC BY and CSA license, is because I want to encourage creativity from the rest of the community. They've made some changes to the homebrew, some changes to the character sheet for their personal server and sessions. And as, a moderator from the, quote-unquote official, original main RPGSTUCK community, I'm always excited to see what they come up with next. So I'm going to leave them to answer the questions that just rolled in.
I do actually see a pretty good one here, and there's another question I want to answer after that one, if I'm allowed the budget for that. How positively does it affect playing the game in VC versus over text from ERICPG? I'm sorry, I really couldn't read that if I tried. In my experience, RPGSTUCK is not a VC game. The way we've played it, it's over text channels in Discord. A lot of the time, if you have multiple concurrent players, it won't work out. Because everyone's going to be on their lands doing a bunch of different things, and the SM's going to have to, keep up with all that. While you can gather in a VC just to shoot the shit, am I allowed to say that on air? you can gather in VC to just talk, hang out, listen to music, especially for playing like character themes and having cool moments and whatnot. RPG Stuck is absolutely a text game.
And you said you had another question you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, I'm scrolling up here. It's somewhere. Hang on. Past Hussy Hints. Whoop, where is it? Alright, here we are. From Bugflower413, another question, assuming Spurb mechanics work similar in RPG Stuck, including machines and devices, what does the drilling machine do, as we never saw what it does in comic? While I'm not actually sure what you mean by the drilling machine, I'm going to presume you mean the totem lathe, but Spurb mechanics are practically fully integrated into RPG Stuck, like Grist, your Etch-a-Ladder, God tiering, everything. Like, if there's a mechanic you can think of that belongs to Spurb, you can probably find it. Specifically, the Modai is a really fun mechanic. Like, your character's fetch modus, you get to make that. You get to homebrew a bunch of silly mechanics just for your own fetch modus. There's a lot you can do to make sure you have the most fun playing RPG Stuck.
Alright, well, I unfortunately do believe this is all the time that we have. We have about a minute here to wrap this up. So, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for seeing our panel. And this has been really an awesome experience.
I'm so sorry to butt in. You can find the Discord links in the description at the bottom. You can find the Discord link to the Spurbiverse, which is these guys' Discord. And you can also find the link to the RPG Stuck official Discord, so you can keep up with updates to the game and potentially a way to join new games online and get the documents so that you can play it with your friends. Thanks so much for listening.